In this episode, I'd like to talk about gratitude. It's been a big theme in my life that I've been trying to work on the past 6 weeks, 7 weeks or so, going on a couple of months. I guess it's been the theme of 2026 for me. It's definitely something that I felt like I have been missing in the years since I've lost David. And I really don't feel like I knew how to find it again. So let's talk about it. My name is Maria Juarez, and you're listening to In This Casa. Bienvenidos. So, I think I've mentioned in previous episodes that I had lost my ability to feel grateful. It probably had a lot to do with the fact that I was really upset with God. And so I didn't feel grateful for being here in the world without David. I wasn't happy to be in the world here without David still. And so because of that, I just wasn't grateful for anything because I wasn't feeling grateful for being here. But earlier this year, I reconnected with an author that I had spoken to probably about a year and a half ago, around the time that I first started to write my manuscript. His name is Jorge Perez, and he is the author of the book, The Shut the Fuck Up Method. Him and I talked about it about a year and a half ago because I was just interested in his insight of how he published and things like that. And we had maybe a short 40 minute conversation. And then I didn't hear from him for, I guess, at least about a year until earlier this year when he reached out. And when he reached out, it kind of felt like that was the universe. I didn't know why he had reached out, honestly, and what would come of him and I taking a meeting and communicating. But these days, I'm just really trying. I have learned to not be angry with the Lord, which I know I have mentioned in a previous episode. And in doing so, I'm really trying to find my place in the world again. I'm trying to figure out who I am. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up, what this chapter of Maria looks like. And so in doing that, I'm trying to be very much just in flow with God's will. I'm trying not to, obviously I have goals, I have things that I want and things that I petition to the Lord for, but I try to just let them go and try to just kind of be in the moment day by day and try to be present so that I can be aware of my intuition or anything that I feel that God is an opportunity that God is presenting me with, or an obstacle that God is moving me away from on any day. I'm just trying to be really open to the flow of His will. And so anyway, long story to say that I took the meeting with Jorge, and one of the things that he started talking about with me right away was gratitude. And he recommended this meditation for me to listen to in the mornings as I'm just getting my day started. And the whole subject of the meditation was gratitude. And then he recommended that I find things to be grateful for throughout the day. And that even if I don't find things to be grateful for, that I should try to tell God 100 times a day that I'm grateful or thank you. And I'm going to interview Jorge, so you guys are going to get to meet him and talk to him, and he's really amazing. So I'm happy that I'm going to be able to do that. But when he suggested that, I'm completely comfortable with listening to meditations. I believe in meditating, and so I was listening to them in the morning, or listening to it in the morning. And I did seriously take his suggestion about reminding myself to say thank you to God 100 times a day seriously. The issue was that in my head, that was like, there's no way I'm going to find 100 things to be grateful for. There's just not. It's not that I'm not a grateful person. Or that I don't have things to be grateful for. I just think like I said, that my unhappiness made it so that way I couldn't find joy in anything. And I guess without joy, it's hard to be grateful, I think. Obviously, if I think about it, I'm grateful, that my kids are healthy and that my family's healthy and that I still have most of my family. And I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for the support that I have in my life. I'm grateful for my husband and that I was able to experience the kind of love that him and I shared. So there are things that I am grateful for, but my unhappiness just outweighed all of that. So what I decided to do was not try to be aware of things that I was grateful for throughout the day, and instead just make myself remember to say thank you to God 100 times a day. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, I don't know, maybe some people could do that. It was a lot to ask for me. I don't think that there was a single day since Jorge recommended that I have actually done it 100 times a day. But I do definitely think that focusing on trying to say thank you and that I'm grateful to God did have an impact on me. I think the biggest impact it had on me was that I was trying, when it would help me to refocus and be more productive during the day, because when I did feel like there was something that was reminding me of my loss or taking me into like a negative thought process for the day, or in that moment rather, because of my loss and because of the circumstances of my life at the moment, instead of kind of going down that path mentally, I would just stop myself and remember to say thank you to God. Just say thank you. Not even for anything in particular. And maybe in my brain, things would cycle in, like for my life, for the car that I was driving, for the business I'm, currently running and working and owning. And, like maybe there were things that went on in my head in that moment, but there was nothing in particular that I forced myself to be grateful for, to say thank you about. But I do feel like it made a really big difference. And I think that that's probably because I think that that's something that I kind of always innately felt or knew, or maybe was a philosophy of mine in my life that I hadn't really thought about or connected to this whole grief process. Because I'm a big proponent of, like, my mom always taught us to write down goals. So I like to write down goals at least once a year. It's important to me. And I think it's, important to have goals and things that you're working on and things that you're asking God for. And I think that being grateful for what you have is the stepping stone needed for God to move in your life on those goals or the petitions that you ask of him. So I think gratitude is paramount. I think it's key to being able to manifest or realize whatever dreams or prayers you have. I think that mentally having gratitude and being thankful, whether you say it in your mind or say it out loud, but also the actions of gratitude are really important. I think, taking care of the situation you're currently in, even if what you're asking for is a elevated situation or a different situation or circumstance, or a material thing, but you're asking for a new version of that material thing or a different version of it. I think that being grateful for where you are in the moment and what you have in the moment is important to being able to move to that next level within yourself, within God, within the universe, to be able to accomplish the goal that you have or the prayer that you have or what it is that you're trying to move towards. And I think that in the past 2.5 years, I was really struggling. And I know that I've mentioned on several podcast episodes that I don't know who I'm going to be when I grow up, right? And I think that that's been really hard for me to even try to want to figure out, because I had no gratitude. I was not grateful for anything. And so if I'm not grateful for anything that I have now or am in now, then what could possibly be next. I don't know if that makes sense. I just feel like growth comes from positivity, and being grateful is centered in positivity. And if I'm not able to, not that I was being ungrateful, but just not being able to recognize any gratitude in my life, it comes from a negative place. And if I continue to sit in that negative place, then I'm not going to be able to get to the point where I figure out who I am and what I want to do with my life, because there is no elevation, there is no growth, there is no next step, there is no answering of my prayers or petitions, there's no manifesting of my goals if I just am negative and I'm not grateful and I just am persisting in my current state and there's no gratitude. I hope I'm articulating well what I'm trying to say, because sometimes I feel like I have a hard time articulating my thought process. But I think that my point was, or that my point is that, like I mentioned earlier, talking to Jorge really made me recognize that I was lacking gratitude in my life, and that to me, I'm connecting the idea that, like, what I said my current state is trying to be in flow with God's will, and I have goals and petitions, but I don't worry about them. I don't worry about what I want. I have them and I just try to work every day towards them, and I try to be grateful just in general and be thankful just in general, so that I am at least bringing that positive energy into my life and around myself as I try to move forward. And I think that gratitude is the key to me being able to be productive throughout the day and work towards being productive on a daily basis, and work on trying to just be open to God's will and in flow with my intentions and my intuition, and not worrying about what it is I'm trying to accomplish, or what I am going to be, or how it's going to happen, or any of those things. I'm just having faith that those things are going to come to fruition, because I am grateful with where I am at this moment, in this station, in this circumstance of my life. And all I can do is recognize that gratitude and keep putting one foot in front of the other, and try to be a good person, and wake up every day and see what the next day is going to bring me. My friend Wendy and I always talk about how you just never know what can happen. Anything can happen. And whenever we say that, typically we mean that in a negative way, because she also lost her husband about a year before I did. And so typically when we say that, we're referencing to like bad things happening. But I try to always remember her that means that anything can happen, right? So we mean it in a negative way, but also we need to remember it in a positive way, right? If anything can happen and we don't know what's going to happen, then anything can happen. And our dreams can come true, because anything can happen. And I'm just trying to be grateful that that is the world I live in at the moment. So I'm going to continue to work every day on saying thank you 100 times. I'm not going to suggest that you do the same thing, because that might be a lot to ask, but I'm just going to encourage you to try to just kind of reflect on the gratitude that you emit in the world, and what you may or may not be grateful for. And maybe just either pat yourself on the back for being a very grateful person, in tune with what I think is a paramount portion of life. And if it is something that you struggle with like I do, then maybe it might help you to just think about it a couple more times a day, and to help you move in the right direction. But thank you for joining me today, and I hope you come back next Saturday and we can continue to talk about what it's like in my casa. I'll talk to you soon.